Alright, so I'm Miss Shawn, if you don't know. And today I'd like to talk about my health and how it's related to my writing. So it's a little bit different, but I figured I should let you know kind of why my stories are a little crazy. And so it might make a little more sense to you after after you know what I've been through. So I actually have well, at least 3 conditions that that bother me the most, I should say. So anyway, it's about well, I have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. I also have endometriosis. I'll explain what those both are a little bit later. The point is, I've been dealing with them for pretty much about 15 years now, virtually ever since I first started menstruating. I've been dealing with them. They'll never go away. There's no cure. And I've tried everything to deal with them except for the big surgery, which would just be to have everything taken out and to basically go through early menopause, which would have its own set of problems and which still wouldn't actually be a cure. If anything, it might only lessen some of the symptoms. So if you have either of those conditions, or you know somebody who suffers from them, I know you definitely understand, and I want to give you a big hug. And if you know anyone suffering from them, please, for the love of God, give them some chocolate. This goes for anybody with a chronic illness. I also have, because of these conditions, I've also developed fibromyalgia. Basically, my body's so used to being in pain that it's always in pain. But anyway, so it sneaks up on me. It always does. I never know when it's coming. I never know how long it's going to last. All I know is that it is complete and total, taking over every system inside and ripping me apart. It might start in my hands, or in my back, or in my mind. I get a little clumsier. I can't focus as well. I forget simple things. Every smell is amplified, and every little thing suddenly gets on my nerves. The twinges of pain start random and sharp in my ribs, my abdomen, my hips. Over the next few days, I feel like I'm going insane as the pain spreads through my back, my legs, my belly. My spine itself sets itself on fire as if I'm being flayed alive by Ramsay himself. Game of Thrones, come on, you know. My mind further fogs, as if so much of its energy is taken up by the pain that it can't spare much for anything else. My uterus feels heavy, like a bowling ball dragging me down. It swells, and I sometimes feel like it's going to burst out of me like an alien. You already know which one. My hips, my ovaries ache, as if under extreme pressure. I feel as if someone is stabbing my bladder and my rectum from the inside, just for the fun of it. The pain runs into my hands, into my ass, and down my legs, every movement bringing more pain. And then it gets worse. On top of the flayed back, the pain from hip to hip intensifies and sharpens on top of the dull throb of the organ behind it all. It's as if the surgical knife is cutting into me all over again. Yes, again. I've battled this beast before. Twice I've gone under the knife to cut out the blood that shouldn't be there, to try in vain to repair the damage caused by long strings of tissue tying my organs to one another, to try to place everything back in its rightful place. And like some weed, it just keeps coming back. Medication may take the edge off of it, but that's all it does. My mind still rails against me, still able to know exactly how much the rest of my body is hurting. The medicine does nothing for the anxiety and depression that comes with it. It doesn't fix the fluctuating blood sugar that I have to watch out for, and sometimes pass out from if it gets too low. It doesn't take away the sudden spike in testosterone and hunger. Oh, the hunger. And that doesn't even cover the horrible bleeding, the migraines, or the way people look at you when you are the living confirmation that women on the rag are insane and emotional. Despite the fact that you may not even menstruate. Don't even get me started on that. But seriously, I do think that's how the rumors first started. Some women with PCOS and or endometriosis were suffering, and everyone just assumed that all women were nuts. I took to thinking of myself as a vampire whenever this beast struck me. I imagined my irrational anger and impossible hunger were simply factors of my hunter nature. It's interesting what the brain will come up with to distract itself from the pain. Like the narrator in Fight Club, I went within and found my power animal. In this way, Queen Erin was born. I gathered that pain, that messed up state of mind, and those fears and dumped them into different characters. Queen Erin got most of the rage, that weird tic that makes you feel homicidal for no reason at all. She also received a lot of the hunger, that feeling that no amount of food is enough, because your body is actually not getting the nutrients it needs, and the pancreas is just like, whatever. And Isabel, poor Isabel. Why, she has the exact same illness that I do. She'll suffer from the same dizziness, the clumsiness, the dietary restrictions, the pain, the lower productivity that I do from time to time. Fortunately for her, she knows what it is that weakens her. She knows that it's not a curse, as I once thought, and she'll be able to channel it into her power to bend space to her will. As I learned to bend all of the crazy thoughts and creativity born of the pain into lovely, insane stories. If you read them, you might even be able to tell when I was suffering from it and when I wasn't. By far the hardest thing is the helplessness I feel whenever it strikes. There have been times when all I could do was lay in bed like an invalid because I experienced the Little Mermaid type pain with every step. That's the original version by Hans Christian Andersen, not the Disney version. I had to let my partner help me. I had to give up the idea that I was Superman. I had to learn to let myself rest, to eat regular meals, and to just let it be. I learned to turn my reality into a fantasy that other people might read and laugh and cry at. And each time I go through it, I will do the same. It's no different from humor in general. We must learn to laugh at what would kill us or destroy us. Creativity is a hell of a drug. And so is music, but that's a post for another day. And speaking of humor, to go a little more into each condition, so the endometriosis. There's a picture that says, I don't have cramps, I have a free sample of what it feels like to give birth. Except for me, giving birth was relatively easy compared to that, even though they ended up hacking me open. That's a story for another day. Anyway, I like to describe it as my uterus going way overboard, trying to give me a present every month. Or at least that's how it started out. Basically, the uterus behaves like a fucked up version of Spider-Man and shoots blood all over your other internal organs and ties them together with what feels like carbon fiber strength strings and adhesions. And in order to accomplish this, it seems like it squeezes as hard as it can, leaving the entire uterus permanently seized up in some cases. So in addition to sending the endometrial lining in the wrong direction and binding your organs and rectum together like some freakish mad scientist experiment, the constant agonizing pain it can cause your organs to clamp up and harden for good, which leads to more pain. If that's a little too gross or intense, here's an alternate explanation. This is an excerpt from Stop Endometriosis and Pelvic Pain by Dr. Andrew Cook. Having endometriosis is like having tens or hundreds of excruciatingly painful blisters or bee stings covering the inside of your pelvis. We all know how painful a small blister on the foot can be and how sore the surrounding tissue is. When you're hiking with a blister on your heel, every step can cause a sharp pain. A blister on your hand from a cooking burn can bother you for weeks every time you accidentally touch it. Now imagine those blisters multiplied and multiplied, spread throughout your internal organs. Picture the entire pelvic area, red, raw, and sore. When the blisters ooze, they can spread to form other blisters, like poison oak does. Any jostling or movement aggravates the pain. If you can imagine those blisters, perhaps you can better understand how women with endometriosis can feel intense, horrific pain that few of us, we hope, will ever have to experience. Some women describe it as worse than labor pains, knife-like stabs in the pelvis, aching, stinging, and burning. The pain isn't limited to the uterine area. It can be side pain, ovarian pain, hip pain, thigh pain, and fairly severe lower back pain. It can be grinding pain, like that experienced by advanced cancer patients. In addition, women can experience nausea, pain with intercourse or bowel movements, flu-like symptoms, and general fatigue. Endometriosis can truly be torture. Yes, indeed. But it doesn't end there. Nope. Not even close. PCOS. This fucking disorder. This one decides to play DJ with my hormones and my pancreas, just wrecking the shit out of it, and not producing music so much as bastardized classical dubstep, if such a thing ever existed. Basically, I get all the aggression and sex drive of a dude, while I'm also suffering brain fog, clumsiness, and cravings like a woman. This is also that horrifying stereotype of the woman on her period, as I mentioned before. I really do start to go insane. My hunger for all sorts of things grows, and my low blood sugar leaves me nearly fainting if I so much as step into a warm shower before breakfast. If you're not careful, it can lead to diabetes, which makes the cravings for chocolate and carbs so much worse. So pretty much it makes me want to fuck, eat, and kill in the worst kind of way, while telling my body to grow more hair than I actually want or need, though that has thankfully gotten better with time. It turns my ovaries into mush, and it doesn't even bother to process sugar correctly half the time. Lovely thing, that. And did I mention that sometimes your polycystic ovaries decide to hide behind your uterus and play peekaboo? Because they totally do that at times. Oh, and this one is very likely to leave you infertile or subfertile. I have to balance my hormones with birth control while not pregnant. I have to use Clomid and progesterone if I'm trying to become pregnant. And then I have to take progesterone for the first 3 months while I'm pregnant to make sure that I don't have a miscarriage. Paired with the endometriosis above, and it's a miracle I was able to have a healthy baby at all. And I'll tell you about him later, because he's awesome. Anyway, on the other hand, you don't really have to worry about accidentally falling pregnant when you're not actively trying, which is great if you're a bit of a slut from that high sex drive, so there is that. But moving on. Fibromyalgia. Pretty self-explanatory. Your nerves are set on high. They figure, hey, since you've been in so much pain and have been so stressed out all the time, we're going to make it easy for you by never turning your pain signals off. Yeah, we're just going to leave them on like those open signs. It'll be like a perpetual source of energy for your pain. It's all the wrong kind of help and sensitivity. Suddenly that 15-foot walk across the courtyard feels like you're climbing down into, crossing, and then climbing out the other side of the Grand Canyon. Suddenly that bottle of water weighs you down. It weighs down on you. It makes it like it's made out of a hunk of a neutron star. You start to feel like that Venture Brothers version of the Human Torch. You remember that guy? But, you know, these are things that'll never go away. They can interfere with your sex life, your sanity, your social life. They leave you fatigued and unable to concentrate, depressed and anxious. There's no cure for any of them. They can only be managed. Some people have symptoms that don't interfere with their everyday life. Some people, like me, feel the effects every single day and have it drive them insane every now and again. This doesn't even begin to cover stressful life circumstances, of which my entire life is definitely one. Seriously, I swear I'm living in a horror movie, like psychological horror movie. So if you're ever reading my stories and thinking, dear God, where does it end? Just know that it doesn't. Know that I don't torture my characters needlessly, at least not too much, but that it's simply the norm for me. The insanely fast pace, the events and pressure stacking on top of one another, everything happening at once, and things somehow still managing to get worse, well, that's literally been my life. But you'll also see some incredible joy, such wonderful and deep connection, such uplifting strength and curiosity, and that insatiable hunger to know, to learn, to love. Because all of this is only ugly if I let it be. I'll only suffer if I want to. The pain may or may not go away, that's not the point. Because even if I run out of spoons, I'll never run out of life. Even when I die, my energy will feed into other things. That's why I can laugh about it. That's why I can still be just as kind and smile even when I'm feeling like shit. Except for the times I literally pass out in pain or exhaustion. It's why, even though I have to do things differently, I'll never give up on creating the life I want. These conditions can be a literal pain in my ass, but the joy in my heart and the fire in my mind are ever blazing.